I died in the year when I loved him the most. He had assets worth hundreds of millions. Yet he abandoned them without hesitation. And he stayed behind with me, perishing in the sea of flames. When I opened my eyes again, I returned to 10 years earlier. We had just gotten married. Back when I hated him the most. I ran to his company the moment I saw him. I choked up and said, "Nestor, I'm sorry." After a brief moment of stunned silence, his expression turned cold and distant. "Go on," he said. "How are you planning to torment me this time?" Chapter 1. When the final explosion happened, I remember clearly that Nestor never made it out. The man who had always been immaculate and composed knelt beside me and said, "Sandra, don't be afraid. I'm here with you." That year, he was 38. Hundreds of millions in wealth, he gave it all up without a second thought, and died with me in the inferno. A midsummer evening, the dying sun outside the window looked like blood. Hot, stifling air drifted into the room. I woke from the dream and sat on the bed in a daze. In the corner, the alarm clock ticked steadily. The desk calendar lay quietly on the table. "Madam, sir just called. He said he won't be coming home tonight." The housekeeper's voice came from the living room, calm and even. I lowered my head and looked at the brand new wedding ring on my ring finger. I closed my eyes. I had really returned to 10 years ago. The towering flames before my death, and that warm, solid embrace, felt so real. At the very last moment, Nestor was still telling me, "Sandra, don't be afraid. I waited too long for you in this life. In the next one, I'll come find you early." Was this a dream, or reality? I pinched myself hard. A dull pain shot up from my thigh. The sound of a ship's horn outside the window jolted my muddled thoughts awake. After the shock faded, an unending ache and bitterness flooded my chest. Because of a misunderstanding deliberately manufactured by others, I hated Nestor for many years. During that time, his competitors used every possible tactic to suppress him, leaving him barely able to breathe. At home, he faced my cold indifference, so he rarely came back. Nestor's parents had died early. He had no real family left. He guarded a vast business empire alone for half his life. Later, the misunderstanding was finally cleared up. We had half a year of happiness, and we even had a child. But before I could tell him I was pregnant, I met an untimely death. "Madam, the flowers have arrived. Are you ready to leave?" The housekeeper came in to ask. "What?" My mind was still in chaos. "The flowers. Aren't you going to see Fabian?" Fabian. Hearing that name so suddenly, I froze. In the tangled mess of my thoughts, a single thread finally appeared. So it was this day. Chapter 2. Fabian was my childhood sweetheart. He was also a remarkably talented actor. Unfortunately, an accident left him with severe full-body burns, forcing him to stay in the hospital long-term. In my previous life, on this very day, I carried a bouquet of flowers to the hospital. I stayed with Fabian through his birthday. When I came out of the hospital, I saw Nestor sitting in his car. The cigarette between his fingers had burned down to the very end. Yet he hadn't noticed at all. I didn't want to explain anything. I didn't even want to see him. "Sandra." Nestor noticed me. He stubbed out the cigarette, got out of the car, his voice low and desolate. "Today is my birthday." I stopped, turned around, and looked at him coldly. "So what?" Nestor's dark eyes fixed on me. He said nothing. I said, "Today is Fabian's birthday too. To marry me." "You stopped at nothing. You ruined his face and destroyed his future. How do you expect me to treat you?" Nestor opened his mouth and said weakly, "That was just an accident. If you hadn't invited him that day, he wouldn't still be lying in a hospital bed now." How am I supposed to believe it was an accident? Nestor fell silent. In the end, he said, "I'm sorry." From that day on, my relationship with Nestor took a sharp turn for the worse. A long, agonizing Cold War began. Only much later did I find out that the so-called accident, even Nestor believed it was one, was nothing more than a scheme designed by certain people to drive a wedge between us. Chapter 3. I've already put everything in the car for you. If you leave any later, you'll hit traffic. The housekeeper came back to urge me. Outside the window, the sun was halfway below the horizon, the light dim and heavy. I snapped back to my senses. hurriedly put on my coat, and got into the car, because I suddenly realized this was 10 years ago. Everything was still in time. The driver merged into traffic. The road to the hospital is already jammed. Should I call Mr. Fabian and ask him to wait a bit? We're not going to the hospital. I watched the traffic lights flicker past outside the window and changed my mind. Go to the company. In truth, I had very little impression of Nestor's company. When I was young, I hated him and never came even once. Later, when I loved him, he was being targeted by enemies. Danger surrounded him, and I didn't dare go looking for him. So now, standing beneath a forest of office buildings, I felt completely lost. Which one was his office building? Pedestrians passing by glanced at me curiously, holding a massive bouquet of flowers, impeccably dressed, makeup done, looking like a girl ready to confess her love. Feeling uncomfortable, I pulled out my phone and brought up Nestor's number. I pressed call, expecting to wait a long time, but after just 2 short rings, it was answered. A cool, distant voice came through the receiver. What is it? Hearing his voice again, my eyes suddenly burned, and my voice choked without my control. Nestor, where's your office? I can't find it. The looks people gave me grew even stranger. A woman who couldn't find her husband's office, standing by the curb, sobbing uncontrollably. It sounded like Nestor was in a meeting. He paused briefly and said, "That's all for today." Then he said to me, "Stand on the sidewalk. I'm coming down." A few minutes later, Nestor walked out of the office building, his tall figure cut through the neon lights, dressed in a tailored suit, composed and refined. I glanced at my reflection instead, eyeliner streaked down with tears, looking like the female lead from a horror movie. Damn it, completely ruined. Why are you here? His tone was flat, almost icy. I turned around. The tall, handsome man was looking at me coolly. My scribbled-on face reflected in his pupils. His expression stiffened slightly. No matter when, Nestor was always flawless, like a flower blooming on a cliff edge, untouched by dust. "I'm sorry." I lowered my head, not daring to look at him. "I disturbed you today." He said only that word and didn't continue. I knew what he wanted to say. Today, I was supposed to spend some time with Fabian on his birthday, not standing here. That reminder snapped something into place. I stuffed the flowers into his arms and mumbled vaguely, "Happy birthday." A long silence followed. I sneaked a glance at him and realized he was staring at the bouquet, not happy at all. After a long while, he lifted a bitter, mocking smile. "Sandra, these are the ones he didn't want, right?" "What?" I sensed something was wrong. My gaze dropped to the bouquet, and my heart sank. "This is bad." Crushed ice blue roses. Their meaning was, "I give you the stars and the sea." Fabian's favorite, the stars and the sea. When I woke up, my memories had been too chaotic. All I wanted was to find Nestor, and I had overlooked these details entirely. "I'm sorry." Thank you for the birthday gift." Nestor's voice was stiff, almost rigid. "It's getting late. Have the driver take you home." He turned and walked away. I reacted fast and grabbed the hem of his suit jacket. "Wait." Nestor clearly hadn't expected that. He didn't stop in time, yanking me forward so I stumbled and slammed hard into his back. The back of his bespoke suit instantly bloomed with multicolored flowers. Nestor turned around, staring at my fingers in silence for a long time. I dug in stubbornly and said, "Nestor, I'm not going back." His expression went cold and empty. "Sandra, how are you planning to torment me this time?" Chapter 4. That question was really hard to answer. In my memory, at this time, Nestor and I had only just gotten married, and I was in the middle of a conflict with him. I was 23. He was 28. The arguments were almost entirely one-sided. I said whatever hurt the most, even when I gave him gifts for holidays. I did it with the deliberate intention of stabbing him in the heart. I was like the boy who cried wolf after shouting too many times. He stopped believing me altogether. Thinking back to my previous life, after the misunderstanding was cleared up, my approach had been simple and rough. Pushing him down was enough. This man looked cold and distant, but was unexpectedly easy to placate. But that method might not work right now. And besides, Nestor had endured too much suffering and too many grievances. I wanted to make it up to him somehow. After thinking it over, I said, "Let me treat you to dinner." Nestor lowered his eyes and said coldly, "No need, I still have work tonight." "Then let's order takeout." I thick-skinnedly followed right behind him. "I'll get you some longevity noodles." Nestor didn't respond. He didn't even acknowledge me. That bouquet of flowers was still clenched tightly in his hand. When we passed a trash can, I thought he would toss it in without hesitation. But he didn't. I followed him all the way into his office. Empty and silent. On the desk sat a boxed meal, already gone cold. He hadn't even taken a bite. Was this how he planned to get through the night? An unprovoked wave of heartache surged up. I took out my phone and ordered him a bowl of longevity noodles. Clear broth. Less salt. No scallions. 4 sides. I chose braised beef with tomatoes and several vegetable dishes, all non-spicy. In the past, to accommodate me, Nestor always ordered heavily seasoned food. It wasn't until much later that I found out. His stomach was bad. He couldn't handle food that was too spicy, too greasy, or too salty. After placing the order, I sat on the sofa, not knowing what to say. It felt like anything I said would be wrong. Nestor was unwrapping the bouquet, preparing to put it into a vase. The crushed ice blue roses stabbed at my eyes. Without thinking, I walked over, snatched them away, and threw them into the trash. He froze, looking at the bead of blood pricked from his thumb. He sighed wearily. "Sandra, have you had enough?" "No." I swallowed the frustration in my chest, angry at how he was like a lump of clay. "No temper at all. Forget it. If you don't like them, I'll buy you something else." Nestor pulled out a tissue, pressed it against the wound. His eyes lowered slightly as he said in resignation, "Forget it." I ignored him, picked up the trash, and tossed out a sentence, "Wait here." Then I hurried out. In the summer evening, the roadside was lined with flower vendors. Compared to the bouquets that cost hundreds or thousands at flower shops, the quality was clearly worse. I ran through several stalls and bought every single red rose they had, bundling them into a bouquet with simple wrapping paper. The takeout arrived just in time, carrying bags and bundles. I went back upstairs. The 19th floor felt even colder and quieter than before. The few employees who had stayed late were already gone. Only Nestor's office still had a small light on. I lightened my steps and pushed the door open. He stood with his back to me in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, his silhouette lonely. The feeling was like looking at an abandoned stray dog. The heavy bouquet and takeout hit the door with a dull thud. Nestor's back stiffened. He turned abruptly and saw me nearly crushed under the load. "Hey, what are you standing there for? Give me a hand." I was panting. He seemed not to expect that I would come back at all. After a brief moment of shock, he strode over, took the bouquet and food with one hand, and with the other slipped an arm under my armpit, guiding me onto the sofa. After catching my breath, sweat forming on my forehead, I still smiled brightly and said, "These are for you. I bought all the roses on the street." A brief blank appeared on Nestor's handsome face. This is bad. The current him didn't seem very capable of adapting to this way I was treating him. Could it be that I actually had to scold him? Seeing him about to go back to eating the cold boxed meal, I let out a dramatic groan. Nestor immediately looked over. I caught the flicker of tension in his eyes. I leaned back against the sofa, chin lifted, and said impatiently, "Can't you eat something hot? Watching you eat cold takeout annoys me." "Nestor." For the next half hour, the office echoed with my non-stop complaints. "Do you even know how to eat properly? That's such a big piece of beef. Are you blind? You're not eating vegetables? You're this old and still picky? Slurp the noodles already. Did I buy them just for you to look at?" Under my relentless urging, the steaming bowl of noodles was finally emptied. Worried he wasn't full, I added 2 small steamed rolls and even gave him the osmanthus cake I had brought for myself. If I had to persuade him like this every day, would I even survive? I talked myself dry. Suddenly, a glass of water was held out in front of me. I looked up and saw Nestor watching me. "Wet your throat first, then keep scolding." His expression had softened a lot. His eyes were still dim and quiet, but at least the icy guard was gone. I restrained the urge to hug him and said, "Nestor, from now on, let's live well together." Hearing that, He looked away. He silently cleaned up the bowls and chopsticks, not answering me directly. Put your coat on. I'll have the driver take you home. But I just got here. He quickly pushed the door open and left, more like he was running away from something. After all, taking out the trash wasn't something a CEO needed to do himself. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed. After being reborn once, why did this man feel even harder to placate? I sat on the sofa, formulating my next strategy. Should I just push him down directly, or pour our hearts out first, and then push him down? The sudden ringing of my phone abruptly cut off my thoughts. I answered absent-mindedly. On the other end was a voice, distant, yet familiar. Sandra, where are you? My previously buoyant mood plunged straight to the bottom as I remembered that there was still such a person. So, it's you. My tone couldn't be called warm. Fabian's voice was gentle. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Didn't we agree to spend my birthday together? Thinking of everything that had happened in my previous life, my fingers slowly tightened until my knuckles turned white. Fabian, we're friends who grew up together, right? Fabian sensed something was wrong and corrected me. Sandra, we're family. Family. I repeated the word, then suddenly asked, you don't have anything you want to tell me? He paused, then sighed. Sorry, I shouldn't have secretly eaten cake without telling you. See? Why is it that the one who's cared for can lie without restraint, make requests, crack jokes, while Nestor has to stand behind me forever and bear everything? A chill ran through my entire body. I couldn't even force a smile. I still have things to do today, so I won't be coming over. Happy birthday. After hanging up, I took a deep breath, my chest feeling stifled. I thought of the phone call Fabian made to me before I was kidnapped in my previous life, asking where I was. I fell into deep thought. He was the person I trusted most, but what if, from the very beginning, that explosion had been an inside job? I looked up and saw Nestor standing at the doorway, his profile hidden in shadow, his expression unreadable. After hesitating for a long time, I asked, you heard everything? Let's go. His voice carried a forcibly suppressed calm. The car is downstairs. I opened my mouth, not knowing how to explain what was going to happen in the future. Afraid he'd think I was crazy, I followed him out, guilt surging uncontrollably. Nestor. He only slowed his steps slightly, without turning back. That call just now was from Fabian. I spoke rapidly. I did promise yesterday to spend his birthday with him, but today I'm different. I'm from the future. Nestor came to an abrupt stop, turned around, frost pooling in his eyes. That's enough. He closed his eyes, smoothed down his emotions, and said, dinner tonight was very good, and I was happy that you could stay with me for my birthday. I stared at him intently, seeing the pain buried deep in his eyes. Nestor's lips were pale. Every word he spoke was like something forced out by someone in unbearable pain, trembling as it left him. So in the end, you're still going to find Fabian. I accept that, because this is the price. In my previous life, Nestor once told me that back then, every bit of kindness I gave him had to be paid for with even more pain. So he never dared to hope for anything, and he was always prepared for me to leave at any time. Those words now felt like a knife stabbing into my heart, twisting painfully. On this day in my previous life, when I wasn't there, his dinner was a box of ice-cold takeout. No one told him happy birthday, so that was why he waited for me outside the hospital, wasn't it? Nestor only wanted to hear me say happy birthday, yet I told him to mind his own business and stay as far away from me as possible. The truth that came too late pressed down on me until I could barely breathe. He looked away. Sorry, I misspoke. It's dark and not safe. If you're going to the hospital, go quickly. I suddenly grabbed Nestor's hand, forcefully, shamelessly, interlacing my fingers with his. His entire body stiffened, but he didn't pull away. Instead, he asked in a hoarse voice, Sandra, what are you trying to do? Aren't I embarrassed enough already? I lifted my head, suddenly grabbed his tie, and pulled him down. Husband, don't move. Those few words were like a seal, completely binding him in place. I rose onto my toes and kissed Nestor's icy lips. The elegant scent of pine was thrown into chaos by my clumsy advances. I wrapped my arms around his neck and pushed him back against the wall, carefully soothing him, from initial stiffness, to shock, and finally to surrender. He closed his eyes in defeat and let me bully and humiliate him. The pristine shirt became a crumpled mess. Without realizing it, he hooked an arm around my waist, tightening gradually, until he greedily pressed my back, pulling us tightly together. The overhead lights flickered on and off. In the end, we separated in the darkness, foreheads touching, breathing hard. "Sandra," Nestor said in a low, strained voice, "don't do this. You don't like it?" "No." He was silent for a long time before saying, "Don't tempt me while I still have reason. Go find him. You can bear it?" I gently breathed into his ear, sounding aggrieved. "Not jealous? Not angry? You're fine with me kissing someone else?" That seemed to hit a nerve. Nestor suddenly lowered his head and sealed my lips, turning the tables. He picked me up and threw me back onto the sofa. Before I could react, his large hand clasped the back of my head, and he kissed me again, like venting pent-up anger. The corner of my lips curved upward. Without something drastic, he really could hold back. It was just that what followed went a bit beyond my control. "Nestor," I suddenly became alert. Hey, you. What are you doing?" "I mean, let's go home first." I only heard his voice, warm and steady. "I gave you a chance. You didn't leave. Now, there's no chance left." As his words fell, I was flipped around and pressed against the back of the sofa. The man's voice behind me drifted softly into my ear, low and dangerously alluring. "Sandra, prepare to die." Chapter 5. I thought that, given Nestor's personality, he wouldn't do anything too outrageous. But I forgot, in my previous life, he was a madman who dared to die for love. Deep down, there was always something wild in him. "Why you?" My weak, broken pleas were swallowed between lips and teeth. In the end, all I could do was wrap my arms helplessly around his neck and cry out, "Nestor, have some mercy on me." He seemed to be angry and didn't take my words to heart at all. I clenched my teeth and held him tightly, my nose burning, tears falling one after another onto his shoulder. Nestor's entire body stiffened. He stopped carefully and said, "I'm sorry," with my chin resting on his shoulder. I tilted my head back and could see the bright moonlight outside the window. "Nestor, I've already thought of our child's name. In my previous life, I had thought about it for a long time, but never told him." "Sandra, don't say it." His voice was hoarse, almost a whisper. "You don't believe me?" What answered me was boundless silence. He probably didn't dare to hope that we could ever have a child. I said, "One boy and one girl. The nicknames, I'll leave those to you." What I didn't know was that the man who had just barely regained his reason had fallen straight back into the net of losing control. Nestor didn't give me another chance to speak. Holding me as though I'd lost half my soul, he carried me through a small door on the side of the office. The door closed softly. The wind lingered outside the floor-to-ceiling window. The moonlight was clear, separated by a single door. There were whispered murmurs. In the latter half of the night, my temper flared up. I kicked him and said I didn't want him anymore. Without saying a word, Nestor dragged me back and asked, "If you don't want me, who do you want?" He asked very seriously. My face burned. "Anyone but you." He lowered his head. "That's not up to you." That night, my dreams were filled with Nestor's entanglement and with flames filling the sky. I lay in a pool of blood, explosives strapped all over my body. Nestor rushed into the fire, picked me up, his whole body trembling. I saw him crying. All I could do was weakly raise my hand to push him away. "Get lost, Nestor. I told you to get lost. Don't touch me, please." The dream shattered under the sound of crying. The warm sensation vanished in an instant. I fell back into darkness, then suddenly opened my eyes, my cheeks soaked and warm. It was a dream. When I came back to my senses, I realized I had pushed Nestor to the edge of the bed. From his expression, it was clear I'd been talking in my sleep. He handed me a tissue, but stayed seated at a distance. Even his fingertips avoided touching me. My heart sank. He misunderstood again. "Nestor." I tried to speak. "I just had a nightmare." He was listening very seriously, with a sob in my voice. I said. I was in a huge fire, strapped with explosives. You wanted to die with me. That's why I shouted those words. Don't misunderstand. Nestor's eyes lit up briefly, as if he'd realized something, then fell back into dead silence. All right, I believe you. After that, he tucked the blanket around me, picked up a pillow, and walked out. Nestor, I stopped him and said to his back. You're lying. He didn't respond. I grabbed a pillow and hurled it hard at his back. Fine. Go then. I'm sore all over. And you, after turning your back on me, you're just going to leave me here to fend for myself. You bastard. After saying that, I didn't look at him again. I curled up like a shrimp, turned my back, and burrowed into the covers. No wonder people say young folks are stubborn. Nestor, 10 years younger, was dead set on his principles. Not cute at all. After a long stretch of silence, the bed behind me sank slightly. Nestor sighed. Sleep. I want to sleep holding you. Chapter 6. He obediently pulled me over and wrapped me in his arms. The night was still long, yet I stared into the boundless darkness. Sleep nowhere to be found. Since being reborn, too much information had tangled itself into a mess in my head. The man who kidnapped me had once crossed paths with Nestor, a former business owner whose company had gone bankrupt. The accident that happened to Fabian back then, however, was actually a scheme by my second uncle, meant to drive a wedge between Nestor and me. These were all things I learned in the final year of my previous life. My whereabouts had always been well protected by Nestor, and yet I was kidnapped on the way to the hospital for a prenatal checkup. How did they know? The only possibility was that phone call Fabian made to me, including the final moment before my death, when Nestor once said, "Thank Fabian, without him, I wouldn't have been able to find you." When you're inside the situation, you can't see clearly. Now, looking back, I couldn't help but wonder, the person I trusted the most, my childhood companion of more than 10 years, Fabian, what role had he really played in all of this? Because I hadn't slept well the night before, my head felt like it was about to explode the next morning. Nestor, I can't get up. What kind of person are you? After taking a few kicks from me, he said helplessly, "Get up and eat breakfast." I'm not eating. Principled to an excessive degree, I complained bitterly. I don't like the younger version of you at all. He paused for a moment, then asked good-naturedly, "The younger me?" Yes. I yanked the blanket out of his hands fiercely and wrapped myself up. I like the you 10 years older. Go age faster and don't bother me while I sleep. I wriggled into the warmest spot, stretching comfortably, my entire body filled with Nestor's scent. I slept again until the afternoon. Clearly, he had anticipated that I might wake up starving. Lunch was neatly arranged on the table. The room was impeccably tidy, everything in perfect order, and my bed was a separate territory carved out within that order. A complete mess. Because of my reckless antics last night, the bed sheets had been pulled into strips, all ending up on Nestor. To be fair, compared to 38-year-old Nestor, 28-year-old Nestor was practically innocent. I shook my head, forcing those blush-inducing images out of my mind. After a quick wash, I finished breakfast, wrapped myself in Nestor's shirt, and cracked the door open to peek outside. The office was quiet. The computer was running a video conference. The sun was slanting low. Soft light streamed in through the floor-to-ceiling windows, falling on Nestor in his suit. It perfectly softened the innate cold distance about him. My heart trembled. My ears reddened before I even realized it. Nestor had always been sharp. Almost the moment the door opened, he looked up. When he saw what I was wearing, he froze, feeling awkward. I cleared my throat softly a few times. After confirming no one was around, I went out with a flushed face and sat across from him. I checked my phone and saw that Fabian had called me 5 times and sent more than a dozen messages, all in the middle of the night. At that time, I should have already been half conscious. Yet the ringing hadn't woken me up. Could it be that? I stared at Nestor thoughtfully. He was focused on his screen, as if he hadn't noticed me at all. Go on. Keep pretending. I crossed my legs and deliberately swayed them within the corner of his vision, not caring whether I was being indecent. Nestor's voice suddenly faltered. After a brief pause, he said, "That's all for today." He ended the meeting, leaning back lightly in his chair. He frowned slightly. Sandra. Oh. Last night you were calling me Sandra, now it's just Sandra again? Look at that upright, righteous expression. Anyone who didn't know better would really think he was some kind of saint. I brushed my foot against his calf under the desk. Nestor. Did my phone ring last night? He lowered his gaze calmly. Not sure. Is that so? I leaned over the desk, grabbed his tie, and pulled him closer. No matter how well he hid it, to me he was still just a young man. Sandra, this is work hours, he reminded me seriously. If it weren't for his slightly uneven breathing, I might actually have believed he was immune to temptation. Oh, I lightly kissed him. Do you still want it? He was silent for a moment, then answered plainly. Yes. I kissed him again. I'll be next door. I'll wait for you to get off work, and we'll go home together. Chapter 7. After returning to the room, I received another call from Fabian. Sandra, I've been discharged. On the other end, his voice was hoarse, thick with a nasal tone, as if he hadn't slept all night. I froze. You were discharged? Why? I'm not continuing treatment, he said dejectedly. If it can't be repaired no matter what, I'll choose to give up. I want to live a quiet life with you. I frowned. There's no possibility between us anymore, and I'm married. Then what about me? Fabian said. What did you take our promise for? Is it because my face is ruined that you don't like me anymore? I hesitated. You were the one who said only by breaking up could the company promote you. That only then could you go further. But you promised you'd wait for me. And how long was I supposed to wait? I sighed. You clearly had countless chances. Yet you kept making me wait. My second uncle was the kind of person who would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. After I was born, my parents left me behind in the Sun family and each moved overseas to start new families. I was nothing more than a chess piece of the Sun family. When Fabian was basking in applause on the big screen, I had already been driven into a corner by my second uncle. That night, I called Fabian nonstop for hours. He rejected every call. The next day, watching his first on-screen kiss, my heart went completely cold, and I accepted my second uncle's proposal. At this moment, Fabian asked me over the phone, "Did you fall in love with him?" I didn't hesitate at all. I love him. In the days that followed, Fabian never sent me another message. I thought about many things. If I wanted to catch the murderer who harmed me in my previous life, I would need Nestor's power. The first step was to make him accept the fact that I had been reborn, so he wouldn't lock me up in a psychiatric hospital. After this legitimate daughter is reborn, she starts investigating the murderer who wiped out her family in her previous life. Having an information advantage is a very powerful thing. Aren't you curious how she later turns the tables and wins? Propping my arm up, I leaned over in front of Nestor, speaking with great enthusiasm. This was already the third rebirth novel I had read to him this month. Nestor listened attentively. If you like it, I can invest and turn it into a TV series. It's not about whether I like it. The point is whether you like it. He looked at the wrinkled shirt I was wearing inside. If you like it, then I like it. I refused to let it go. Clenched my fist as a pretend microphone. Then tell me your thoughts. Nestor was speechless. Lately, the way we got along had become much smoother. He indulged me greatly, almost obeying my every whim. Yet it always felt like there was something between us. Nestor. I dragged my chair closer and sat in front of him, my expression serious. I think it's time I told you. He put down his chopsticks and assumed a posture of full attention. Go ahead. I spoke with a grim, tragic tone. Actually, I was reborn too. Silence. A long, drawn-out silence. Nestor raised an eyebrow slightly, lips pressed tightly together. He wanted to laugh. I pointed at him. Oh ho. I knew it. You don't believe me. Go on. Sandra. The corner of his lips curved up, then was forcibly suppressed. I believe you. I decided to go all in and told him everything that happened in my previous life. At first, he listened like an adult listening to a child tell a story, as if it were some new trick I'd learned. Gradually, his brows furrowed. I knew I was saying the right things. The person who stabbed me was surnamed Fong. He should have been an employee at your company who later went out to start his own business. Of course, This is 10 years earlier, so I don't know where he is now. And my second uncle was also involved. Lastly, you need to be careful of Fabi. Before I could finish, a shrill ringtone cut me off. Nestor and I both looked at the name displayed on the phone screen. Fabian. Because of my negligence, Fabian's contact name hadn't been changed to his full name yet. Nestor's expression tightened. He returned to his cold, distant demeanor, stood up, and picked up the plates. I'll wash the dishes. That feeling came again. Deliberate avoidance. He was still afraid. Chapter 8. I clenched my teeth, grabbed my phone, and followed him into the kitchen. He stood with his back to the doorway and turned on the faucet. I pressed the speakerphone button. Fabian's familiar voice came through the speaker. Sandra, maybe this is the last time I'll ever call you. Along with his voice, there was the howling sound of wind. My heart jumped immediately. Where are you? On the rooftop of the high school's teaching building. His voice was very soft. Sandra, do you remember? The day my parents left me, you said the Sun family didn't truly treat you with sincerity either, and that in the future, we could be family. When I was 18, I wanted to jump off the rooftop. His voice was light, tinged with regret. You stopped me. Now, you don't want me anymore. I feel like there's no reason to keep living. Fabian, don't be impulsive. My head buzzed. I turned around, grabbed some clothes, and pulled them on. Wait for me, I'll be there right away. After hanging up, I turned my head and realized Nestor was still standing by the sink, his back to me, as if he hadn't heard anything at all, only the sound of water rushing endlessly. I panicked and rushed over. Hey, are you stupid? Why aren't you changing clothes? He staggered slightly from my pull, his dark eyes fixing on me. Change clothes? It wouldn't be appropriate for me to go alone. I'm married. I irritably pulled out my phone and spoke rapidly. Nestor, I'm giving you 10 seconds. Take off the apron. I'm calling the police right now. This is insane. The students haven't even finished evening self-study yet. If he jumps in front of everyone, what kind of situation is that? Changed. Nestor was already standing cleanly dressed by the door. I froze. You're pretty fast. Fortunately, Nestor could drive, which spared us the wait for a driver. The police had already arrived at the scene. They told me not to have any further phone contact with Fabian, as long as there was a sliver of hope holding him up. He wouldn't do anything dangerous right away, and this window of time was just enough to evacuate the students from the school. Within a safe range, Nestor drove as fast as possible. We arrived at the scene very quickly. The wind on the rooftop was fierce. It couldn't disperse the summer heat. The campus was deathly silent. The police stood about 5 meters away from Fabian, not daring to approach. I was pulled onto the rooftop by the police. Miss, he insists on seeing you. Stall him for a bit. Rescue personnel will be here soon. I looked at Nestor. He was stopped outside the cordon, nodding at me. I took a deep breath, climbed the steps, and called out, Fabian. The figure sitting on the edge of the rooftop shifted slightly and turned around, revealing a side of his face ruined by burns. Sandra, you're here. Looking at him, I felt dazed. It seemed like I hadn't seen him in a very long time. After Nestor and I cleared up the misunderstanding in my previous life, we went to see Fabian a few times, but he was extremely resistant. Perhaps someone who had harbored hatred for many years would still find it hard to let go, even after suddenly discovering that the person he hated wasn't the real culprit. And later on, with Nestor under attack from all sides and the situation tense, I stayed at home and didn't dare go out. Counting both lives together, it had probably been over a year since I last saw him. Fabian, can you come down first? Fabian ignored me and simply looked at me. I'm sorry. His gaze shifted to Nestor, who was standing outside the crowd waiting for me. And he said, You were right. I was too extreme. Before you got married, you already told me, after that, we'd only be family. I was the one who was too greedy. Chapter 9. I thought of the years Fabian and I spent supporting each other, surviving together. When I was bullied by street thugs, it was him who protected me, taking the blows for me. When my second uncle drove me out, he rushed through the pouring rain overnight to bring me an umbrella and take me home. For a moment, I wavered. Was he really the one who caused my death? Fabian smiled faintly. You promised you'd spend my birthday with me every year. Sing me a birthday song, and I'll come down. All right, I'll sing. The wind gradually quieted, and the birthday song drifted softly through the night air on the rooftop. But as I sang, I found myself thinking, it seemed I hadn't sung one for Nestor that day. I'd make it up to him when we went back. When the song ended, Fabian stood up from the edge of the rooftop and faced me. Thank you. I haven't heard you sing in many years. It sounded beautiful. I want to ask you one more question. His voice was very calm. Go ahead. Do you still love me? I was silent. After a long time, I finally said, you are my family. From the moment he stepped onto the stage back then, he had been. Fabian's deep eyes turned toward the crowd, as if meeting Nestor's gaze. The wind on the rooftop made me feel a little cold. I said, shall we go back? Fabian withdrew his gaze and smiled at me slightly. Sandra, I love you. After saying that, he spread his arms and fell backward, into the boundless night. At that moment, time seemed to freeze. All the blood in my body turned to ice. The next second, I lunged toward the edge of the rooftop. Fabian! But I grabbed nothing. The pitch-black ground below was like a giant beast opening its blood-soaked jaws. Fabian vanished into the abyss just like that. I stared blankly at the darkness below, my mind completely empty. I seemed to hear a dull thud. My legs gave out, and I collapsed to my knees. Fabian, was he dead just like that? Had I wronged him? People say humans are perceptive. I'd known him for so many years. Fabian sensed my growing distance, so he chose to end his own life. Did that mean I was the one who killed him? My entire body was ice cold. I sat there in a daze, trembling uncontrollably. Suddenly, I fell into a warm embrace. That familiar scent, at that moment, was like a lifeline. I clutched Nestor's sleeve tightly and said, I killed him. He held me and said softly, I'm here. Don't be afraid. I don't know what to do. I broke down crying, clinging to Nestor, my words falling apart. I'm sorry. He stroked my hair. He didn't die. Don't cry. Leaning close to my ear, he whispered gently. The police set up an inflatable air cushion below. They caught him, with my eyes closed, tears soaking his shirt. I burst into loud sobs the next second. When someone truly seems to die because of your actions, guilt can come crashing down like a mountain, crushing you. Nestor's voice was strained. Just some scrapes. He's been taken to the hospital. If you want to go, I can take you. No. My voice was hoarse. I want to stay with you. All right. Chapter 10. We returned to the car together. Outside the window, the police were withdrawing in waves. Soon, someone would take us to the hospital, because Fabian had no family. I leaned against Nestor's shoulder, utterly exhausted. Before we came, there was one last thing I didn't tell you. I suspect Fabian was involved too. Nestor took a deep breath. Sandra, what if he wasn't? If he's innocent, would you choose him or me? The moment he asked that question, I finally, truly let out a breath I'd been holding. All along, Nestor had always assumed he was the one who wouldn't be chosen. But 10 years later, Sandra would choose Nestor every single time. I looked up at him seriously. Do you remember when Fabian first debuted? Yes. We didn't know each other back then. At that time, I had already broken up with Fabian. If I had to describe my feelings for Fabian, they were actually quite complicated. We endured a chaotic, turbulent youth together and stepped into a brutal society side by side. Compared to that, the element of romance was minimal. I counted on my fingers for Nestor. He debuted, started acting. His fame kept growing. By the time I married you, Fabian and I had already been broken up for over a year. I admit that at the beginning, I really hated you. Just like I hated my second uncle, hated people who barged into my life without permission. It just so happened that at that time, Fabian got into a car accident on his way to dine with investors. And the driver was one of your people. So I lumped you together with my second uncle, as someone ruthless and cold-blooded. I didn't hate you because I liked Fabian. I didn't like Fabian romantically at all. I just couldn't stand people who destroyed others' futures at the slightest disagreement. Nestor gently tightened his grip on my hand, I'm sorry, it really was my fault. I didn't think things through. No, I said, hugging his arm. I already told you, it was my second uncle's fault. You did nothing wrong. If anyone dares badmouth you, I'll go argue with them. He was silent for a moment, then said, "Thank you." "What for?" For the first time, someone took my side. Took it for me. Hearing that, guilt surged up in me again. Few people in the industry ever talked about Nestor's family. He truly didn't have anyone protecting him. Nestor looked at me seriously. "Can you tell me how you started liking me?" The night was dark, but I could see the hope in his eyes. "There was one time you drank too much and came home, kicking over the scarf I had knitted for the puppy. In the middle of the night, you sat cross-legged on the floor, studying how to knit it a new one. I told you to go to bed, and you said the puppy would be cold in winter without a scarf. So I thought, someone who worries about whether a puppy is cold might not be the kind of person who'd cruelly harm others." There was something else I didn't tell him. That night, Nestor talked in his sleep. He said, "Sandra, I'm cold too." I happened to hear it when I got up to drink water. My heart softened a little. I felt he was pitiful too, all alone, unloved. Nestor listened with great interest. "So we'll have a puppy?" "Yes." 7 years later, on my birthday, you gave me one. You said you were too busy and rarely came home, so it could keep me company. I chuckled and counted again. If we do the math, right now it should be some other family's old dog, probably hasn't reincarnated yet. Our puppy was super smart. Learned everything quickly. I even suspected it hadn't drunk from Granny Mang's soup yet. Mid-sentence, I suddenly stopped. Nestor froze. "What's wrong?" I grabbed his hand blankly. "Fabian, he's the same as me." "The same how?" "On the rooftop." I turned my head, my brows knitting tighter and tighter. When Fabian jumped, he said he hadn't heard me sing him a birthday song in many years. But last year, I did celebrate his birthday with him. Nestor narrowed his eyes and immediately understood. "You mean, in your previous life?" "For several years, yes." Blood rushed to my head, the sensation prickling down my spine. According to what he said, he waited for a birthday song from me for many years. If that's true, there's only one explanation. Nestor and I exchanged a look, both seeing the same confusion in each other's eyes. Let's go to the hospital. Chapter 11. Half an hour later, the doctor told us that someone had taken Fabian away. When we pressed further, we were refused on the grounds that patient information could not be disclosed. In a situation like this, it was hard to believe that Fabian had nothing to do with that incident. On the way back, one question kept circling in my mind. "Do you think he jumped on purpose just now?" Nestor held the steering wheel, his fingers lightly tapping against the leather cover as he said, "Generally speaking, when the building isn't very tall, the police will set up an inflatable air cushion. If it were me, I'd be 100% sure I wouldn't die from the fall." I studied his profile thoughtfully. "Oh, then what do you think his mindset was?" He gave a soft snort. "Trying to win your sympathy, so you'd side with him." This was truly the first time, across both lifetimes, that Nestor had ever said something so jealous. I pressed my lips together and nodded solemnly. You really know your stuff," he replied dryly. "Men understand men best." I didn't call him out on it. Instead, I looked at the scenery flashing past the window and fell into thought. Telling Nestor 10 years in advance who to guard against shouldn't make things worse. Thinking of how, in my previous life, he had charged into the sea of fire without hesitation and pulled me into his arms. My heart began to ache again. How could I not be moved? When someone treats you well, it's felt. After hours of back and forth on the road, it was already deep into the night when we got home. The housekeeper had gone back. The living room lights were off. Just as Nestor reached out to turn them on, I suddenly lunged forward and pushed him down onto the sofa. His long legs instinctively spread to either side, bracing my weight. His clothes were in disarray as he rasped, "What are you trying to do?" "Nestor." I leaned close to his ear and whispered softly, "I love you." His breathing instantly became uneven. His Adam's apple bobbed as he held my waist to keep me from toppling off him. "Get down." The command sounded almost flustered. I blinked in surprise. "No way. You don't say it." He covered my eyes. His words cold and uncompromising. And don't look. Darkness fell abruptly as my eyelids fluttered. My lashes brushed against his warm palm. Who would have thought that I love you could be this lethal? Enough to throw him completely off balance. I grinned. I love you. I love you. The playful teasing was like feathers, scratching right at his heart, scratching until sparks spread into a blazing fire. I braced my hands against his chest and could clearly feel, beneath my palm, his heartbeat gradually speeding up. So I softened my tone. Nestor, I love you. The next second, my lips were sealed by his. He was more forceful than ever before, trapping me in the corner and making me accept his affection without room for refusal. Those hands moved as if caressing a precious treasure, gliding over my cheek, my neck, gently supporting me, obsessive, lingering, disobedient. He sighed softly. Aren't you hungry? I am. Like a koala, I clung tightly to him, my hands slipping straight into his shirt. I'm hungry. Time to eat. Seeing that he still didn't give in, I decided to go all out. Hey, have you thought of the child's nickname yet? Nestor's gaze darkened inch by inch, holding me. He passed the dining table and headed straight for the bedroom. The smell of roasted chicken legs suddenly caught my attention. I craned my head toward the table, my eyes lighting up. Hey, wait, the housekeeper left me a chicken leg. Don't even think about it. For the first time, Nestor refused me without mercy. You only get one chance. This time, I decide. Chapter 12. I felt that Nestor really did have some negotiation skills. More than just some, he was practically a ruthless businessman. His voice murmured in the darkness, carrying me like a lone boat tossed by the tide. Fragmented kisses traced my fingertips. And in the end, he pulled me deep into his arms, straight into his heart. I belong to you. Dazed by his looks, I hummed softly, rolled over, and pinned the man down firmly. Mine. Everything is mine. Later, after showering, my eyelids grew heavy. While holding him, my hands took advantage of the situation, wandering everywhere. He was like a docile big dog, as if he would never lose his temper. Sandra, I was so sleepy that even my voice sounded sticky and blurred. When we had just gotten married, you agreed to go see a movie with me. The next day, you had a stomachache, cancelled, and went to the hospital. Was it to see him? To me, that felt like something from a very long time ago. I thought back for a moment. It didn't seem to have anything to do with Fabian. The day before, Nestor had someone deliver a small cake. On top of that, I ate a pack of pickled chicken feet and ended up with gastroenteritis. I went to the hospital for an 4 drip, got my medication, and went straight home to rest. But judging from Nestor's tone, something felt off. My drowsiness vanished instantly. I sat up. After a brief moment of confusion, Nestor said, I'm sorry. Don't apologize yet, I'm not angry. I sat cross-legged. I'm just curious. Why did you think I went to see Fabian? Logically speaking, with his capabilities, he could have easily obtained my whereabouts. He would have known I was half dead in the hospital getting in for, but he didn't check. After a short silence, Nestor confessed honestly. I could see Fabian's WeChat moments, but he doesn't usually post on WeChat moments. Does he? We looked at each other. Both of us saw confusion in the other's eyes. Nestor took out his phone and handed it to me. I eagerly tapped on Fabian's profile picture. The moment I saw the contents of his WeChat moments, my head buzzed. August 9th. Today Sandra said she'd celebrate my birthday with me. Thank you. My love. August 1st. Got to taste Sandra's home-cooked food. Still tastes like before. I scrolled back frantically, all the way to the one from half a year ago. The movie is out. Waiting for Sandra to come. That was the exact day I had gastroenteritis. When I opened my own phone, Fabian's WeChat moments were completely empty. These posts were visible to Nestor only. And yet, in reality, ever since I got married, I had barely had any interaction with Fabian. At most, he showed up when the hospital called to ask for payment, or when the doctor needed to adjust the treatment plan. I truly treated him as an old friend, but behind my back, he hurt my loved ones again and again. My head ached with anger. And you just believed it? There wasn't even a single photo of me. Nestor lowered his eyes, staring at the empty WeChat moments on my phone. Something in his gaze slowly lit up. Sandra. I didn't dare not believe it. He repeatedly opened and closed the page, as if confirming something, or perhaps it was just a reflex after suddenly seeing light. I was afraid that if I sent someone to check, I'd find out you really were sitting with him in a movie theater. If that were the case, I'd rather not know. I was both angry and heartbroken. You could have just asked me. Halfway through, I suddenly stopped. Right. He didn't dare ask. Back then, I lashed out at him at the slightest provocation. The answer he'd get probably wouldn't have been any better than what he imagined. I was wrong. I buried myself in Nestor's arms, my eyes burning. I'm sorry. I won't lose my temper with you anymore. He laughed softly, kissed the edge of my ear. No, I like you when you lose your temper. You're cute. Just, don't say you don't want me anymore. That night, the very last barrier between us disappeared. Chapter 13. I suspected that Nestor might have a bit of a masochistic streak. If he didn't get scolded at least once a day. He seemed physically uncomfortable. One morning around the beginning of autumn, I exploded yet again. Nestor, are you trying to work yourself to death at the company so I can present you with a banner that says Model Employee of Dedication? On the phone, Nestor's sexy voice was wrapped in a thick layer of raspiness, with a faint nasal tone as he laughed. I can still hold on. Late last night, he'd suddenly come down with a high fever, his entire body burning. I'd called the family doctor, got him some fever reducers, half coaxing, half forcing. I fed him the medicine, then carried a small basin and wiped him down. By the time dawn broke, the fever had finally gone down. I wrote a light meal plan for the housekeeper so Nestor would have something suitable to eat when he woke up, then curled up in his arms and fell into a deep sleep. Who knew that when I opened my eyes again, 10 o'clock, the man had already gone to work, maybe because of the shadows left by my previous life. I was especially sensitive about his safety. After a quick breakfast, I packed up the porridge the housekeeper had made and hurried to his company. The secretary jumped to her feet the moment she saw me. The CEO is in his office. He's not receiving guests. That's fine. I'll just wait a bit. I sat down on the sofa outside the office and played on my phone. Gradually, I began to hear Nestor talking inside. His tone was colder and sharper than I'd ever heard before. I gave you a chance. You didn't take it. But, Mr. Nestor, you clearly set me up to make a mistake. Nestor let out a soft laugh. So what? That's completely unreasonable. I'm a businessman. I only care about profit. I don't reason with people. I rested my chin in my hand, listening intently. The secretary, on the other hand, looked like she was about to die of fright. The door was suddenly flung open, and an angry middle-aged man stormed out. As he passed, he inadvertently met my gaze. I froze. Boss Fong, wasn't he the murderer who stabbed me in my previous life? Had Nestor already started moving? 10 years early. No wonder he was an action-oriented man. The secretary was sweating profusely as she raised her voice. Boss, your wife is here. I snapped back to my senses, picked up the food container, and walked in. What I didn't see was the cold, ruthless man who ruled the workplace with an iron hand. Nestor was sitting by the window, his white shirt immaculate, smiling at me gently. I'll come home at noon. I set the lunchbox down on his desk with a thud and sat across from him. That person just now, did he scare you? His voice was very soft as he smiled. Sorry, I'll watch my tone next time. That's not it. I scratched my head. That person is the one I told you about before, the one who stabbed me. A layer of ice flashed through Nestor's eyes. He simply said, "Leave it to me," then lowered his head and ate seriously. The timing was perfect. The porridge was still warm. He really had impeccable manners. Even eating was pleasing to watch. Seeing me still staring at him, Nestor paused. Do you want to eat with me? No. I hesitated, leaning forward a little. About that. Nestor stopped again and sighed. You want to buy a bag? Or clothes? You can use the card I gave you. Or wait until I'm done with work and I'll go with you. I clenched my teeth, my ears burning red. Could you, trouble you two, talk to me in the same tone you used just now? What? I covered my face. nearly crawling under the desk. Please. I really fall for that kind of thing. A brief blank appeared on Nestor's face. I suddenly remembered one night when my brain short-circuited and I told him, "Look at me like you're looking at trash." Instantly, I felt like I was sitting on pins and needles. Some shameless lines really do just slip out without thinking. Nestor swallowed his food and suddenly laughed. Embarrassed, I kicked him lightly. "Don't laugh at me. Forget what I said." "I won't forget," he said, staring at me. "I can never refuse any of your requests." That day, people at his company saw me rush out with a face as red as a ripe persimmon. After being entangled across 2 lifetimes for so many years, it finally felt like we were truly in love. I'd taken over Nestor's WeChat moments. Every few days, I'd post failed kitchen experiments, blurry couple photos taken on a whim, all paired with cringeworthy, tooth-achingly sweet captions straight out of elementary school. Nestor tactfully remarked, "Actually, I do have some friends." In other words, it was, indeed, a bit embarrassing, but seeing how much fun I was having, he simply accepted everyone's teasing. Under every single post, there were always the same few comments. "The old bachelor's finally fallen. Showing off his wife again. If you've been kidnapped by your wife, blink twice." Chapter 14. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, it was deep autumn. Fabian seemed to have disappeared from my life entirely. His phone number was deactivated. All lines of contact cut off. Occasionally, when I saw high school students getting out of class, I would still think of the past. But my intuition told me that things wouldn't end in such a simple way. Nestor became very busy, leaving early, coming home late. Sometimes, when I waited for him at home, I would think of my previous life. He was the same back then, endless work. Barely any time to talk to me. "Madam, it's 10 o'clock. You should go to bed early." I sat cross-legged on the carpet, piles of newly bought items scattered around me. "I'll wait a bit longer." Counting it up, I hadn't even seen him for a whole week. Tonight, I suddenly wanted to wait for him. The weather was getting colder. I'd gone on a shopping spree and bought Nestor a full set of winter clothes. A camel-colored plaid scarf, a wool coat, and a pair of fluffy, slightly childish matching couple gloves, almost the same style as mine. As I was putting them into the wardrobe, I suddenly heard a phone vibrating inside the coat. I took it out. It was an email. I snapped a photo and sent him a message, teasing sarcastically, "Dear Nestor, how come there's a phone I didn't know about?" He was already used to my occasional bursts of nonsense and replied, "For work. I forgot to take it. Help me open it and take a look." Smiling, I opened the email and muttered, "It better not be a love letter from someone else, or I'll make a scene." The screen changed to a medical report. I squinted and zoomed in. Saw Samuel, skull fracture and intracranial hemorrhage. This person must have been hit by something. Oh, there's a death report below. Workplace accident. How pitiful. After hearing that, Nestor said, "Be good. Put the phone back. I'll be home soon and buy you a little cake. You just said I could look stingy." He laughed lightly. "There's nothing interesting there." There was still food warming in the kitchen for him. I put the phone back, pulled out the wrapping paper, and started packing the new clothes as a gift, planning to surprise him. My best friend Brenda teased me over the phone. "You used to be annoyed by him to death. Sandra, don't tell me you swapped personalities. Our dear Nestor is the best." Was I blind before or what? All right. So when are you going to partner up with me and open a studio? Do you even know how hard it is to get one of your design drafts? I hesitated for a moment. Maybe later. I can still send you drafts while staying at home. Oh, you just want to stay with your dear Nestor. I admitted it. If we really got a second chance and nothing changed, if we were still destined to walk toward death together, then every extra day lived would be a day stolen. Nestor came home right on time. Only a small lamp was left on in the living room. The clay pot stew was still warm. I hugged my legs, curled up in the corner of the sofa, holding my breath. Nestor softly called, "Sandra." I didn't respond. I crouched low, circled behind him, and suddenly leapt onto his shoulder. Meow. Nestor sighed helplessly, carrying me on his back, Hold tight, don't fall. Why aren't you scared? I saw your shadow. Bored. I rubbed against him lightly. Go to the bedroom. I prepared a gift for you. He followed my words and carried me inside. In the middle of the bedroom sat a huge gift box, wrapped crookedly and unevenly. I'm making up your birthday gift this year. I didn't even make your longevity noodles myself. I was really dissatisfied. All this money was earned from me working hard on design drafts. I slid off his back and presented it proudly. Open it and see. Nestor lowered his eyes and looked at it for a long time before saying, Sandra, thank you. Hurry up. His hand rested on the gift box. After hesitating for a long while, he said, There's something I want to discuss with you. Go ahead. He hesitated, stopping himself several times, before finally saying, We might need to be apart for a while. Chapter 15. I froze for a few seconds, thinking I hadn't fully woken up. When it finally sank in, I slowly confirmed, word by word. You want to divorce me? Struggle flickered through Nestor's eyes. Just as he was about to speak, I suddenly stood up. I understand. I'll go pack my things. Sandra. Nestor grabbed me. Listen to me patiently, all right? My tears were already welling up. I turned my back to him, afraid that crying would be too embarrassing. Just say it like this. Actually, even if you don't say it, I already know. I hurt you. You were nice to me just to get back at me. I shouldn't have called you an annoying guy who snatched innocent girls into marriage back then. I shouldn't have deliberately stood you up and made you wait outside the movie theater for 2 hours. And I definitely shouldn't have known how much you value cleanliness, yet secretly smeared jam on your white shirt. I deserved it. The person behind me suddenly went silent. Where did you smear the jam? On the shirt and on the bed sheets. When was this? Well, not long after we got married. I wanted to get revenge on you. The light suddenly flipped before my eyes. The next second, I was draped across Nestor's thigh. Smack! A crisp slap landed on my lower back. Tingling and numb, tears rolled out of my eyes as I cried pitifully. You didn't say there'd be domestic violence before the divorce. Help. I didn't even use force. Nestor laughed in anger. Sandra, are you a child? I struggled fiercely, refusing to back down. Self-help books say you have to strike at your opponent's weak spot. Don't you just want things clean? Then I'll dirty your bedsheets, and I'll do it again before the divorce. Smack. Another slap. My face burned red as I stammered. Nestor, this is humiliating me. Just finish me off already. A clean finish? I'm afraid you couldn't take it. He picked me up, using both arms and legs to restrain my struggling. His face stern. Enough. Stop crying. I'm telling you something serious now. I need you to help me put on a show. What kind of show? Samuel is Fabian's father. Nestor went straight to the point. The email you saw earlier said his father died in a workplace accident. That construction project, many years ago, was a joint venture between your second uncle and my father. I suddenly remembered the day I went to the rooftop to find Fabian. He stood up there, the wind billowing his white shirt like a swollen sail, holding an ice pop. I shouted, Fabian, what are you doing? He turned around. His refined face was filled with despair. My family member died. I don't have any family left. At the time, shocked by the upheaval in his family, I cautiously moved closer and handed him the ice pop. I don't have any family either. What do you think about me? You? Yeah, look, this is from when they locked me in the girls' restroom and beat me. My second uncle only scolded me for causing trouble. He never cared. Fabian lowered his head and looked at the bruises on my arms, took the ice pop, jumped down from the edge of the rooftop, and asked, What's your second uncle's name? Santiago Sunday. Fabian slowly raised his eyes. Santiago Sun? The Santiago from the Sun Group? He looked at my face with a seriousness I'd never seen before and said, Don't worry, I'll treat you very well from now on. Chapter 16. I was lost in my memories. It wasn't until many years later that I suddenly understood what that look in his eyes had meant. Perhaps, just before he learned my second uncle's name, Fabian had truly wanted to treat me as family. But my connection to the Sun family could help him pry open a crack for revenge. He spent many years teaching me that family would never betray you, and that if family were hurt, you had to return it 1,000-fold. Yet his very first promise had been woven entirely out of lies. Nestor said, "Sandra, I can tell that Fabian likes you. You said that in your previous life. You were murdered, and Fabian played a part in it. Maybe it was because you chose me. I don't dare keep you tied to me and gamble on this. You don't really have much interaction with the Sun family, Fabian knows that. So as long as you leave me, I'll shoulder all the danger alone." I slowly shook my head. Impossible. Be good. No. I stubbornly grabbed his hand. I'm not getting a divorce. Do you know? In our previous life, we even had a child. I never got the chance to tell you. Nestor froze. Really? Yes. Who knows, maybe I'm pregnant even now. His whole body stiffened as he stared blankly at my stomach. Nestor, I can play along with you, but we can't get a divorce. A few weeks later, the media broke the news. Prominent entrepreneur Nestor was suspected of marital troubles and had divorced his wife. On the same day, photos of me moving out of the villa were posted online by netizens. My best friend Brenda watched as I hauled bag after bag into her apartment. Overjoyed. Sugar mama, you finally figured it out and decided to build an empire with me? Yeah, I kept a cold face. Men can't be relied on. Hey, weren't you calling him Dear Nestor just a few days ago? Come on, tell me what happened. Faced with her eyes glittering with gossip, I said gloomily. I spread jam on his bed sheets. That's it? That's it. We got divorced. So what are you planning to do now? Live on my own. On the third day, I received a call from my second uncle. Sandra, come back tomorrow night. Holding the phone in one hand and misting the lilies with the other. I laughed. Oh, second uncle. What brought me to mind all of a sudden? Well, didn't you get divorced? The family can't just watch you suffer out there. We're hosting a banquet, so we might as well help you look around. You're really well informed. So are you coming or not? I'll be there on time. After hanging up, my best friend looked at me worriedly. Didn't you already cut ties with your parents? What does their family have to do with you? You can break bones, but the tendons stay connected. If I don't go, they'll still keep thinking of ways to harm me. That evening, wearing a black, form-fitting mermaid gown, I pushed open the doors of the Sun family mansion. The banquet hall was filled with clinking glasses. The moment I stepped in, all eyes turned toward me, whispers spreading. So that's the Sun family's daughter? Not very memorable. Well, if your parents don't care, who are you expecting to? Should we let your son try his luck? Marry into the Sun family and skip 10 or 20 years of struggle? Get lost. I moved through the crowd. Turning a corner, I heard a familiar voice. It's been a long time. Following the sound, I saw Nestor holding a wine glass, standing among the crowd, smiling effortlessly. He was always dazzling. After news of his divorce spread, many bosses flocked to him, female companions surrounding him layer upon layer. Must be thrilled. When people noticed me, the chatter abruptly stopped. Nestor, maybe you'd like to catch up first. Nestor cast me a cold glance and looked away. No need. We don't have any relationship anymore. I casually took a glass of champagne from a waiter and walked over. People instinctively stepped aside, afraid we might clash and drag them into it. Nestor's dark gaze lingered briefly on my moist lips, then traveled down my neck, taking in my slender waistline. For a moment, he forgot his lines. I didn't have the patience to wait. I splashed the champagne onto his clothes and smiled. Just saying hello. You don't mind, do you, Nestor? He took the empty glass from my hand, his fingertips lingering against the back of my hand, and replied lightly, I don't mind. I snorted, dropped the glass, and turned away, pushing open the door to the terrace to get some fresh air, only to find someone already there. Someone I knew. Fabian. He leaned against the railing, his burned face hidden in the shadows, leaving only half of his refined, handsome features visible. Sandra. Long time no see. My eyelashes trembled slightly. My hand clenched behind my back. Long time no see. He chuckled softly. Why so distant with me? I tried to calm my nerves, taking a deep breath. Why would you think that? I was just about to ask you, where did you go? You blocked my number, didn't you? You've really grown bold, just like before. I jokingly shoved him. Suddenly, The light from the doorway was blocked by someone. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Nestor leaning casually by the window, watching us with a detached expression. Fabian was pushed completely back into the shadows. I went to have surgery. Surgery? He leaned slightly forward, the dim light illuminating his face. The skin that had once been burned was largely repaired now. Look closely. Am I the same as before? I stared at him blankly for a long moment before saying, the same. So then I took a step back, creating distance between us. I'm happy for you, really. Chapter 17. The door was suddenly pushed open as my second uncle arrived with a group of guests. Come, let me introduce you all. This is my niece, Sandra, and beside her is Fabian, a newly signed actor with our company. The two of them have known each other since they were very young. This banquet is actually meant to help settle a lifelong matter for these two kids. The crowd surged around us, guests offering one compliment after another. Fabian and I were surrounded so tightly that there was barely any space left. I frowned slightly. Second uncle, I'm not ready to. Fabian slipped an arm around my shoulders and said with a smile, don't worry, uncle, I'll take good care of Sandra in the future. I struggled, only to realize he was much stronger than I expected. Panic flickered through me. Thankfully, after less than half a minute, he let go and smoothly began chatting with the guests. My emotions were a mess. Once Fabian finished exchanging pleasantries, I asked, when did you start getting involved with my second uncle? Fabian unhurriedly adjusted his bow tie. Only by gaining the Sun family's approval can I marry you. I originally had other plans, but your divorce saved me a lot of trouble. I looked at his face and felt an overwhelming sense of strangeness. Fabian smiled. What? Don't recognize me anymore? Do I seem different from the Fabian you had in mind? In the past, I had thought Fabian's smile was bright and sunny, that we belonged to the same world. But now, it seemed I had been wrong. He advanced step by step, forcing me back again and again. In the end, my back hit the glass door. Sandra, this is who I've always been. He pulled a smile in the dim light, twisted and unsettling. Originally, neither of us should have been spared. But I love you. As long as you come back, we can be just like before. You wouldn't want to die alongside Nestor again like in your previous life, would you? My whole body trembled, instantly swallowed by a massive wave of fear. He knew everything? Fabian clearly noticed my fear, the way my pupils dilated. My breathing turned ragged. He leaned over me, his hand landing on the doorknob behind me. With a light press, the door opened. The banquet's cheerful, flowing violin music drifted in. Light flooded the space in an instant. Fabian smiled and silently mouthed to me, go back. Enjoy the banquet. We'll meet again another day. It wasn't until I merged back into the crowd that I realized I was drenched in cold sweat. The brilliant lights left me dizzy. I slowly leaned against the staircase and, guided by memory, went up to the second floor. At the end of the corridor was the room I used to stay in. I wanted to go in and rest for a while. Almost the moment I pushed the door open, someone covered my mouth and dragged me behind it. A familiar scent washed over me. Nestor's low voice poured into my ear, carrying a faint trace of alcohol. Where did he touch you? All my strength drained away, and I collapsed into Nestor's arms. My body trembled lightly. My shoulder. In the next instant, a scorching kiss landed on my shoulder. Lingering, entangling. Nestor said nothing, patiently and meticulously kissing away the lingering sensation left behind, replacing it with his own mark, before finally finding my lips and gently biting them. Little by little, the fear and tension gradually faded under his soothing presence. I stood in the darkness, kissing him. After a long while, my face flushed. I asked softly, are you jealous? I drank a whole vat of vinegar. Nestor replied dully, no one else is allowed to touch you. No one. As he spoke, he leaned in to bite my shoulder. Hey! I shoved him away. We still have to go downstairs later. What am I supposed to do if there are bite marks on my shoulder? Seeing Nestor frown, clearly unconvinced, I added, they'll just say I got divorced and immediately jumped into something with Fabian. Do you really want to hear that kind of gossip? He was silent for a moment. No. Then restrain yourself a little. I rested my head against his chest, close to his heart, listening to its powerful, Steady beat. Fabian has joined forces with my second uncle. He's even guessed my situation and is prepared for your arrangements. Are you confident? Sandra. HM? If the Sun family suffers a devastating blow because of this, what will you do? So that was what he was worried about. I held Nestor's large hand. My parents were in a business marriage and despised each other. The year I was born, they dumped me on my second uncle and each moved overseas. He treated me as a tool to help the family consolidate power. If it weren't for you, I might already have been married off to a 70-year-old man. So don't hold back because of me. I hooked my finger around his ring finger and noticed that at some point, he had put his wedding ring back on. Warmth spread through my chest. If the Sun family really collapses, then it's because my second uncle did too many immoral things. He'd deserve it. Chapter 18. Over the next few months, I returned to the life of an ordinary working stiff. After all, since becoming an adult, I hadn't taken a single cent from the Sun family. I had supported myself entirely through part-time work while studying, and by now I had a skill that could put food on the table. Aside from being forcibly summoned back by my second uncle to arrange blind dates with Fabian, my life was fairly peaceful. Brenda was extremely dissatisfied about this. You've already cut ties with them, why are you still doing whatever they tell you? I didn't explain. Fabian knew my situation well. As long as I didn't comply with his wishes, he would instigate my second uncle to make things difficult for Nestor. Until Nestor brought the two of them down, I had to keep things steady. Besides, Fabian had handed the choice of date location to me. I picked a bustling downtown area during the day. At least it was relatively safe. Brenda loved watching TV. Recently, Nestor had been appearing frequently on financial news channels. Every time she saw him, she cursed him. Absolute scum in a suit. Sandra, your second husband candidate must be approved by me first. Holding the remote, her hand shaking like she had Parkinson's, she pointed at Nestor's handsome face and practically shrieked. A man like that, one look and you know he's bad news. If I ever let you put on a wedding dress for him, I'll eat shit upside down. I crawled out from a pile of design drafts and said awkwardly, you, maybe don't speak in absolutes? Leave yourself a way out. Fine, I'll drag you with me when I eat it. Because of Brenda's intense resistance, even meeting Nestor had to be done in secret. In deep winter, right after a heavy snowfall, wearing a thick sweater, I came out of the stairwell carrying a bag of trash. Nestor's car was parked downstairs. It was freezing cold. Yet he was standing outside the car waiting for me. He was wearing the wool coat I had bought him, along with the scarf I'd picked out. Come here. He beckoned to me. I hopped over happily and threw myself into his arms. Then put a finger to my lips. Lower your voice. Let's get in the car. What's wrong? My best friend currently believes you're the ultimate scumbag. Like a thief, I dragged him into the car. The headlights went out, and darkness fell all around us. Only the street lamp not far away cast patches of light across the pristine white snow. Wrapped in my thick down jacket, I fumbled around for a while before pulling out a pair of knitted gloves from my pocket. These are for you. Nestor smiled and carefully accepted the gift. Mrs. I already have a lot of pairs. So you don't like them? I reached out to snatch them back, but he reacted quickly and pulled his hand away. Thank you, I really like them. In truth, we didn't have that many shared topics, yet we always seemed to have endless things to say. I lazily leaned against his shoulder and rubbed against him. My best friend said, if she ever dared to marry someone like you for a second marriage, she would. She would what? The words were far too crude, and I was embarrassed to say them out loud, so I glossed over it. Anyway, something really disgusting would happen. I sighed. I can already picture her beating me up. Nestor laughed and took my hand. Then why don't you pick someone else? Nestor, I shoved him irritably. What nonsense are you talking about? He lowered his gaze and silently folded my hand into his palm. His fingers were long and perfect, large enough to envelop both of my hands. I want to stay with you. My mood sank, the forced cheer draining away in an instant. I didn't know what was going on lately. I kept having nightmares. Every single one ended with Nestor telling me to live well on my own. I always woke up with swollen, tear-filled eyes. Sandra, I mean if, he paused. One day, I suddenly separated from you. Before he could finish, my tears plopped onto the back of his hand, cutting him off. A sigh came from above my head. Nestor pulled me into his arms and patted my head. Just a hypothetical. Even hypotheticals are scary. I said dully. I grew up without much love from my parents. So whoever treats me well, I end up liking. Fabian was like that. At the beginning, you were too. But later, it wasn't the same anymore. Liking someone makes you happy, but it also makes you sad. What I feel for you isn't just that. I want you to be happy more than anything. When I see others having something, I think you should have it too. I start watching every word I say, afraid of upsetting you. My emotions seem tied to yours. So when you talk about separating, it hurts terribly. Nestor kissed my hair and sighed. Sandra, you're in love with me. Then don't separate, okay? You said you wouldn't refuse my requests. He hummed in agreement and patted my back soothingly. All right, we won't separate. Chapter 19. Early the next morning, I came out of the bedroom with swollen eyes. Brenda had a pork patty clenched in her mouth. You cried last night? Yeah. Please get me an ice pop. She got up, went to the kitchen, pulled an expired old popsicle from the bottom of the freezer, and pressed it straight onto my eyelids. I saw you get into a luxury car last night. I kept the ice on my eyes and stayed silent. She rolled her eyes. Figures. Crawling back to an ex and getting humiliated by him. Huh? Crying and crying. Curled up in bed over a man every day. Look at how little backbone you've got. It's not like that. He's actually pretty good. Stop. She dug at her ear. If I hear you say one more nice thing about him, I'm throwing you out. I gave up resisting, picked up my bowl, and took a sip of soy milk. Cheeks puffed out. I stared blankly at my best friend. She snapped. Swallow it. Your brain ran off with a man, and now you don't even know how to eat. Pfft. I sprayed it all out. Before she could start yelling, I had already rushed to the bathroom and started retching. She came over with her face covered in soy milk, cursing as she brought a glass of water and patted my back. Good Lord. What's wrong with you? Don't scare me like this. Should I call an ambulance? I grabbed her. Don't. Hey. Let go. Do you know how awful your face looks? I held on tight and said, I'm pregnant. What nonsense are you? She suddenly shut up, then blurted out, holy shit. A few minutes later, she dragged me into a taxi. Fabian called. Sandra, where are you? Only then did I remember I was supposed to be on a date with him today. Sorry. I've got an emergency. Where are you? Send me the address. Knowing how much I disliked him, Brenda snatched the phone and shut it off. Something this big, and you still plan to hide it, won't even tell his dad? Fine. Sandra, you're impressive. Turning it off was good. Safer. I sighed. Help me keep this secret. Don't tell your family. I'm afraid the Sun family will find out. She sulked and ignored me for a while, then asked, so you're really going to have it? Yeah. All right. You give birth. I'll be the kid's aunt. Women hold up half the sky, no matter what. We can raise a child. The radio news was playing in the taxi. We listened for a bit, then fell silent. Something had happened to the Sun family. It broke this morning. It involved a serious construction site safety accident from many years ago. The Nan family, as a partner at the time, was also affected. My best friend squeezed my hand and looked at me worriedly. I shook my head. I'm fine. I hadn't expected Nestor to move this fast. The other scandals that followed for the Sun family came one after another, like straws piling onto a camel's back, just waiting for the final one to make it collapse. Thinking of my previous life, when my second uncle, as the mastermind behind the scenes, had incited Boss Fong to stage that explosion, the knot in my chest that had been there for so long finally loosened a little. This time, it was 10 years earlier. Nestor's business empire was at its peak, and my second uncle's accumulated power hadn't yet grown to a terrifying level. That kind of thing shouldn't happen again, right? Traffic was light that day. The driver drove steadily. Halfway through the ride, my eyelids grew heavy, so I leaned briefly against Brenda to rest. Wake me when we arrive. Before I heard her answer, I blacked out. After a while, voices drifted in from far away. Sandra, open your damn eyes. The screech of metal scraping jolted me awake. My limbs felt heavy. As I slowly opened my eyes, I saw concrete pipes, and Brenda slumped against one of them. A gust of wind brought the stench of industrial oil and gritty sand. I climbed up from the ground in a daze. Brenda kicked her legs uselessly as a creaking sound came from behind her. Oh, thank God, hurry up and untie me. Realizing we were in an unfamiliar place and had been tied up, I hurried over, crouched down, and saw the thick hemp rope binding her. A wave of familiar memories crashed over me. I jerked my head up, scanning the surroundings, cold sweat pouring down instantly. Wasn't this the abandoned factory where I died an unnatural death in my previous life? The rope was tied in a dead knot, no way to untie it, only to saw through it. The grating sound of steel bars echoed through the entire building. Brenda cursed nonstop. Kidnapping me? They must have a death wish. After a long time, the rope still hadn't thinned much. She slumped weakly against the slab. Sandra, stop struggling. They tied me up, but not you. That means I'm the target. My family is. While no one's here, run. Go get help and call the police. I gave a bitter smile. I'm sorry. This time, I'm afraid I dragged you into this. What do you mean? Before she could finish, Fabian's voice suddenly came from behind us. Your best friend is really noisy. Brenda craned her neck to look. I hurriedly covered her eyes, turned back, and stared at Fabian. She knows nothing. Let her go. Brenda couldn't hold it in. Fuck you. I told you loud and clear. My surname is Ma. The Ma family. You dare kidnap me? When my dad finds out, you're dead. Fabian's face darkened. I said, you heard her. What's between us doesn't need to drag her family into it. Brenda's elders were in politics, and her brother was a police officer. She'd grown up fearless. If anything really happened to her, no one would survive the fallout. Fabian tossed me a utility knife. Cut the rope. You're not allowed to move. Otherwise, no one's walking out of here alive. Chapter 20. I hurriedly picked it up and cut Brenda free from the ropes. Don't look back. Go home and stay there. Brenda frowned and whispered. There's no trick, right? Once I get out, I'm calling the police. Calling them is fine. I murmured, but I have a feeling they're already at the end of the road. They're not afraid of the police anymore. Thinking of the explosion from my previous life, I shoved my best friend. If one person could get away, that was still something. She squeezed my shoulder. Sandra, wait for me. I'll bring the police back to save you. With that, she ran out without looking back. The vast space was suddenly empty, leaving only Fabian and me. I stood up and met his dark, gloomy gaze. What do you want? What did you go to the hospital for? He shot back. Stomach pain. To get medicine. A mocking smile curled at Fabian's lips. Sandra, don't treat me like an idiot. He grabbed me and dragged me to the window, clamping my chin and forcing me to look down. Let's see who showed up. Downstairs, a man was being held at gunpoint by my second uncle. I recognized Nestor instantly. My heart clenched. Fabian chuckled. By the time the police arrive, they'll be looking at Nestor's corpse. Your second uncle won't get away either. My heart pounded, my fingertips icy and trembling, but the more I showed that I cared, the more dangerous it would be. So I simply closed my eyes. I'm divorced from him. Whatever happens to him has nothing to do with me. Is that so? Fabian said coldly, staring down below. Second uncle's son, shoot one of his legs. Bang. After the gunshot, dark blood seeped from Nestor's thigh. One leg gave out and dropped to the ground. He looked up in our direction, his face ashen. Fabian, I'm here. Let her go. Fabian ignored him and turned to me. Sandra, are you happy? I was frozen to the bone, unable to say a single word. Second uncle, the second shot. I suddenly grabbed Fabian's hand, shaking. Don't, please. Fabian's smile vanished instantly. He clenched his fist so hard his knuckles turned white. Nestor's eyes were dark, sweat beading on his forehead. Don't scare her. Fabian's gaze was terrifyingly cold. He looked at Nestor with open provocation, then lifted my chin and kissed me. His lips were dry and cracked, his force brutal. Nausea surged through me as I struggled instinctively. He said, "Do you want him to die?" I froze. Fabian pressed his lips against mine, grinding. The sickness rose from my stomach. I shoved him away, dropped to my knees, and vomited until the world spun. Do it, Fabian ordered coldly. Another gunshot rang out below. My mind went blank as I scrambled to the window. Nestor, The scene I imagined, him collapsing into a pool of blood, didn't appear. It was my second uncle. He had been shot in the back and was sprawled on the ground. Blood dripped steadily from Nestor's left hand. Not far away, a squad of armed police rushed in, quickly sealing off the area. Fabian's expression changed. He suddenly yanked me back and retreated behind a concrete pillar on the second floor. Outside the window, police were shouting at Fabian. He hadn't expected them to arrive so quickly, gripping me and hiding in a blind spot beyond the sniper's line of sight. Fabian shouted, "I've got explosives. Tell Nestor to come in and see me, otherwise I'll die together with her." My mouth hung open as I gasped for air, my vision darkening. "Fabian, calm down. I am calm. In our previous life, you were willing to die with Nestor. What, now that it's me, it's not okay?" I beat desperately at his hand. I don't want to." Fabian grew more and more agitated. "I could have fixed everything, but why did you have to come back too? Give me back the original Sandra." I reached out helplessly as the light before my eyes dimmed. "Fabian," a familiar, low voice came from a few steps away. "I'm here. Let her go." The pressure on my neck vanished abruptly. I doubled over, coughing violently. My vision blurred with tears as I looked at Nestor, barely clinging to consciousness. Instinctively reaching out to him, the blood on his leg had already dried, and his hand was wrapped in bandages. He looked even more battered than in my previous life. From the moment he stepped onto the second floor, his eyes had never left me, as if afraid I might disappear. Fabian dragged me back a few steps, pulled out a dagger, and held it to my neck. "Nestor, let's play something different this time." He pointed to a leather jacket not far away and said to Nestor, "Put it on." I knew that jacket all too well. "No, don't wear it." I struggled violently, my voice breaking for the first time. "You can't." Fabian laughed wildly, exhilarated. "Sandra, in your previous life, Nestor dared to hold you and die together. What about you? How much do you love him?" "No." I clawed at the back of Fabian's hand with all my strength. He tightened his grip and sneered. "You think he can beat me? What good is it that he protects you so well? Even if you didn't come out, I could have gone in, dragged you out, and tied you up. I've waited a long time for this day. Today, either he dies, or you do." Nestor didn't hear our whispered exchange. "Keep the knife away from her. I'll put it on." "Nestor, go!" I sobbed until my voice was hoarse. "I'm begging you." Nestor acted as if he hadn't heard me, staring at the bead of blood drawn by the knife at my neck. He swiftly pulled on the jacket. Chapter 21. Beep. The countdown started. I closed my eyes in despair. Fabian suddenly shoved me forward. "Sandra, choose." I stood between the two of them, crying. I took one step toward Nestor. He retreated half a step. "Sandra, don't come over." Nestor warned solemnly. "There's a bomb." I froze in place, not daring to take another step. I wasn't afraid of dying, but choosing Nestor in front of Fabian at this moment would only escalate Fabian's emotions. It might even trigger the bomb early. "Sandra, admit it. You only love yourself. You're just like your second uncle, selfish and heartless." Fabian let out a cold laugh, tossing out cruel remarks from the side. Nestor backed up to the window. He glanced at me, then spoke. "Fabian, about your father, I'm sorry. You don't deserve to mention my father." Fabian, who had been watching with a twisted amusement, was suddenly enraged. He stepped forward half a pace. "You rich kids born with silver spoons in your mouths, do any of you have even a shred of sincerity? But your father did violate regulations back then. He didn't wear a safety helmet, and we paid the appropriate compensation." "Shut up." Nestor curled his lips into a cold, mocking smile. "You're nothing more than a useless nobody." My whole body was shaking. This world had gone insane. Every word Nestor said stabbed straight into Fabian's deepest wound. Did he want to die? Fabian pulled out a lighter from somewhere and hurled it to the ground. Flames burst up instantly. The stench of engine oil in the air. It turned out Fabian had poured it there long ago. "It was you people who ruined my life." Fabian's eyes were bloodshot as he walked toward me. His face, not yet fully repaired, looked terrifying in the firelight. "Sandra, why didn't you choose me? If you'd told me earlier that you didn't like disfigurement, I wouldn't have been so ruthless with myself back then." A bucket of cold water poured over my head. So it really was him. You're insane. Yes, otherwise. How could I have used your guilt to get information about Nestor? After years of lying low, Fabian finally tore off his gentle mask, revealing the obsessive, deranged side beneath. His laughter was like a broken bellows, harsh and grating. Sandra, if you had chosen me, this wouldn't be the ending. Since it's come to this, you've only got yourself to blame. Come to hell with me. He pulled out a remote control. Without thinking, I turned and threw myself into Nestor's arms, holding him tightly. Sandra! Nestor roared, and the next second, bang, along with the sharp crash of shattering glass. I heard nothing at all. Buzz, buzz. The piercing ring of tinnitus stabbed relentlessly into my brain. In front of me was Nestor's bloodless face, his lips moving as if he were saying something. I felt as though I had been blown into pieces. My entire body was numb, drained of all strength. But dying together with him, I wasn't afraid at all, wasn't I? Then why was I crying? The deafness lasted only an instant. The next second, a flood of shouting rushed into my ears like an atomic blast. Suspect neutralized. Body found on the second floor of the abandoned factory. Team 1 reporting. Detonation device intact. Hostage confirmed safe. No additional suspicious explosives found at the scene. Fire is intense. Notify relevant personnel to evacuate with the hostage immediately. As I was supported and led away, I turned my head and saw Fabian lying on the ground with his back to me, dead. A hand covered my eyes. The cold air finally cleared the smoke and dust from my nose. Police sirens rose and fell in waves. Red and blue lights crisscrossed, reflecting against the sinking sun. My legs gave out, and I collapsed to my knees in the snow, shaking uncontrollably. At that moment, Brenda's foul-mouthed rant sounded like heavenly music. This is the damn 21st century. A society ruled by law. They've cracked down on crime who knows how many times already. And you idiots are still playing with explosives? Every last one of these outlaws, lock them up. Give them life. Give them death sentences. Put a bullet through them so hard their own mothers won't recognize them. Officer, arrest all of them. Don't let a single one go. All right, go check on Sandra. We'll handle the rest. Brenda spotted me kneeling in the snow at once and howled. Sandra, get up. You're pregnant. Stop crawling around on the ground. Nestor, who was nearby cooperating with the bomb disposal team, froze. He snapped his head around and stared at me. Before Brenda could even reach me, he took off the leather jacket, scooped me up without a word, and walked straight toward a car, his face dark. Hey, who are you? At least say something. Bang. The car door slammed shut, cutting off Brenda's protests. He shoved me into the back seat and climbed in after me, staring at me with a stormy expression. I suddenly got scared and shrank into the corner. Don't look at me like that. I'm scared. You know you're scared, and you still dared to rush over? What did you think this was? Some drill where you just drop to the ground? After a brief silence, he unleashed a harsh scolding. Nestor had never spoken to me in such a severe tone before. My tears immediately spilled out. The bomb was on me, he snapped, furious enough that veins stood out on his forehead. What if Fabian had pressed it? What then? Seeing that he was about to continue, I closed my eyes and flopped into his arms. Oh no, I fainted from fright. Nestor choked, sucked in a deep breath, and held it so hard the veins on his forehead throbbed. Suddenly, he hugged me tightly. Only then did I realize his hands were shaking. I'm sorry. My tone was bad just now. He messed up my hair, rubbing against it, forcing his voice to calm down. I was actually planning to jump out the window. That way, even if the sniper missed and it exploded, you wouldn't get hurt. But why did you rush over and hug me? I've never seen you that strong before. I didn't think that much. On TV, when there's a bomb, you tackle someone. I couldn't exactly hug Fabian, could I? Nestor fell silent, completely at a loss for words. Thankfully, we were both still alive. Are your wounds all treated? I asked. Yeah. I don't believe you. Let me see. Sandra, he said helplessly, half laughing. It's on my upper thigh. I buried my head and started pulling at his pants. We're basically an old married couple already. What are you embarrassed about? Brenda's voice came muffled through the glass. Yeah, that's right. I suspect my friend is a victim of domestic violence. Her man just abducted her. Your friend at the Women's Association handles this kind of thing, right? As she spoke, she yanked the car door open. Light poured in. I was kneeling between Nestor's thighs, one hand on his belt, already halfway undone. Brenda held her phone up and stared at us expressionlessly for 3 seconds, then slammed the door shut again. By the way, if a single dog gets abused, do you deal with it? I won't go to the Women's Federation anymore. I'll go to the Animal Protection Association. Chapter 22. When Nestor and I held our make-up wedding, Brenda sat at the main table. She barely touched any of the dishes. When the toasts came around to her, Nestor said gently and politely, I used to hear Sandra talk about you a lot. She said that if her second marriage were still with me, something bad might happen. Under his inquisitive gaze, Brenda suddenly remembered the bold words she'd once declared. If her second marriage is still with him, I'll eat shit upside down. She looked at me, I looked at her. We exchanged glances in silence. I'd only mentioned it casually. Who knew Nestor's memory was this good? Brenda smiled, raised her glass, and said, well, that's all in the past. I'll drink one to wishing you two a lifetime of happiness. Nestor smiled faintly. Thank you. After the toast, I followed behind Nestor in small steps, muttering, that was all ancient history. Why did you bring it up? He laughed. I was curious. Really curious? Yeah. I hesitated for a long moment, then suddenly grinned. Bend down. I'll tell you secretly. Holding on to him, I whispered in his ear for a good while. Nestor's handsome brows relaxed, amusement spilling into his eyes. I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. What if she actually did it and dragged me into eating it with her? Nestor, would you still want your face? Ha 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 ha. My cheerful laughter echoed through the entire hall. Nestor just looked at me, his gaze so tender it could practically drip. After the wedding banquet, the guests were free to enjoy themselves at the seaside resort. In the evening, I took off my wedding dress, changed into loose clothes, and put on a frayed sun hat. Holding Nestor's hand, I bounced along the beach. You used to say you'd bring me to the sea, but you never did. When you say used to, you mean... Oh, 38-year-old you. I blurted out. Nestor frowned slightly. Sounds a bit old. Not old at all. I smacked my lips thoughtfully. 38-year-old you was handsome too. A bit more quiet than now, but couldn't resist being teased. At 38, Nestor was steadier, still the kind that made people fall madly in love. Nestor seemed thoughtful for the rest of the walk. He was a little distracted whenever he talked to me. That night, the moment I stepped into the bedroom, I was detained. A dangerous presence closed in from behind. The heat of his chest made me jolt. Click. I was locked in. Nestor's cool voice was laced with desire. Did that old man understand you better than I do? I froze, then suddenly realized why he'd been acting strange all day. He was jealous. I snorted with laughter. Hey, you. Nestor gripped my chin, facing the mirror, his eyes sharp and hooked. Couldn't resist being teased? He chuckled softly. That's because he couldn't handle it. Why you shouldn't say that. You're still defending him? That tone, his vinegar jar had clearly tipped over. And no, I said, on the verge of tears. 10 years from now, when you remember this, are you going to feel the need to prove you're still very capable? Nestor paused, then answered seriously. In principle, yes. You two competing, why am I the one suffering? He ignored me completely, staring expressionlessly at my reflection in the mirror. I really want to let that old man see. I covered my face in shame. Stop talking. Nestor kissed me, murmuring low and possessive, leaving no room for refusal. Sandra, you're mine. That night was probably the peak of emotional intelligence in my entire life. I had to admit he was better than the 38-year-old version of himself, and also let him repeatedly confirm that the 38-year-old him was still very impressive. It grew late. Moonlight slipped through the curtains and fell on the side of his face. Nestor had already fallen asleep. I gently touched his face, warmth filling my chest. Once, countless times, I'd held the hand of 38-year-old Nestor inside. If only we'd gotten together earlier. For 10 whole years. We'd lived as two miserable strangers. During those 10 years, I think I must have fallen for him. 2. On nights when he quietly tucked the blanket around me, there was a moment when I wanted to hug him tight and say, "Let's make up." But Fabian's accident had long become a thorn in my heart. Those feelings I didn't even dare acknowledge, whenever they stirred. The thorn would stab deep, reminding me that Nestor had once hurt my family, perhaps because it had been suppressed for so long. When the misunderstanding was finally cleared, love burst forth, carrying me through a brief yet romantic period of passion. I'd liked him for longer than I ever realized. "Sandra, why are you awake?" Nestor's voice was still hoarse with sleep. I cupped his face, leaned in, and placed a very light, very gentle kiss on his lips. "I love you." Beneath my palm, Nestor's heart started racing again. This man still couldn't resist being teased. "I love you too." He caught my retreating lips, turned the tables, and deepened the kiss. I was completely overwhelmed by his sudden passion. "Hey, what's gotten into you?" "I just had a dream." "HM?" Nestor opened his eyes. Something unreadable lurked within them, like a black storm on the verge of collapse. "I dreamed about our previous life." I held my breath. "Really?" "Yeah." He brushed aside my messy hair, looking at me as if I were a treasure. "Sandra, I'm so glad we were given another chance." The night was still long, the moonlight shy, the wind gentle and lingering. Warm fragrance drifted as the curtains stirred, brushing the wind chimes at the corner of the room. It was the sound of heartbeats, rising and falling. I became a tender sea, embracing the moon, whispering softly, "When did you start liking me?" "When we got married?" The moon answered, "No, I've liked you for a very, very long time."